And it was at this point, and I think I may have needed this really low time to realize what I actually wanted out of my college experience. And so Bob hit me with another challenge, and he was like, well, you still didn't do Spain right. Like, why don't you try it again? And I was like, oh yeah, nice, like, not really, not happening, and stuff like that. And he was like, no, I think you should go back again. I think you should try it again. And I was like, you serious? Like, Spain the third time? Like, I felt fluent at the time, wasn't close. And he's like, why don't you go back? And so I decided to go back to Spain a third time. And what I realized at this point was that going to Spain 3 times is not what I'm advocating for. I don't even love Spain. But for me, it was what I needed to do. I was staying in the game. I was staying in the game of life, and my coach, my outside life coach, or at least my support, was able to see what was going on with me and challenge me to follow my vision and follow through with what I actually wanted. And so I go back to Spain a third time, because I'm like with Bob, I'm like, okay, I want to change things. I want things to be meaningful at this point. So I go back to Spain a third time. And this time it was completely different, because I knew what I wanted, and I knew how to get it. I think that's the critical thing, was it took me Toledo and Salamanca, potentially, and this rough time in my life. I know this is very linear, but it took me some hard times and some big risks for me to get into the time where I actually enjoyed myself. So I flew over to Valencia, got there, was in a great language school, learned a bunch of Spanish, and instead of going, it was on the Mediterranean. It's like this beautiful city on the Mediterranean, and every day all the kids would go to the beach and they would just chill there for 6 or 7 hours and go out and party all night. And that was fun, and I did that for the first week. But then I realized that wasn't what I wanted out of Valencia, and what I was looking for was connection with people from Spain, with people from other countries, like actual connection, like actually seeing people. And so I found some really cool friends. I went to these bars and did intercambios where I was learning Spanish while they were learning English, and it was just people from town. So I was still going to the bar, I was still partying, but I was meeting people who wanted to do what I wanted to do. We had similar goals. And I met some amazing people that way. I met this one guy from Cuba, who was like an ex-military guy when the Soviets had control of Cuba, and he was like this badass jiu-jitsu guy. And so he would teach me jiu-jitsu in these parks in return for English. So I'd be teaching him English while he was flipping me over my head and throwing me to the ground. People on the streets would be freaking out because they thought some American kid was getting his ass kicked. It was just me learning jiu-jitsu from this guy. It was so sweet. But I met the people I wanted to meet. My experience here, BSC, was changing, and I was becoming responsible for what I actually wanted out of my broad experience. And it was at this point also that I decided to kind of drop out of classes, because the classes were good, but I couldn't have Spanish level, but I wanted to do something different, and I wanted to actually meet Spaniards. So I dropped out of my classes, and I went up to northern Spain, and I did this thing called the Camino de Santiago, and it was what I thought I needed to do at the time. And it was a pilgrimage, and it starts in the Pyrenees, the border of France and Spain, and it goes 800 kilometers across to the Pacific coast. And I wanted some time alone, and I wanted some time adventuring, and I wanted to get out of this town and meet some cool people. And that's what I did. And I went up and I did this. It's a religious pilgrimage, but I was just on it to meet people and be alone and see what happened. I just wanted to see what happened. And the people I met on this pilgrimage were amazing. I just off the top of my head, I met this one Spanish psychologist guy. I'm really into psychology and positive psychology, and I met this amazing Spanish psychologist who I still talk to this day. This is over a year ago. And he'll keep tabs on me, and he'll be one of my lifelong friends. And he was someone who influenced me a lot, and heard a lot about what happened with him. And then I also met another man who also changed my life, and he was this really amazing guy. He had this little free hostel that you come to, and he'd make you food, and then send you on your way. And I don't know how he made any money. I think people donated money because they felt bad for him. But he was this incredible guy who had done the Camino 10 times. He was and it's this 800-kilometer thing. But he was I'll never forget him telling me just to follow my heart in this Camino. If I didn't ever follow it before, but just follow it in the Camino. And he's like, where you want to sleep, who you want to talk to, what you want to do. And so I started, and this is midway through, I started sleeping in bales of hay. I started sleeping in little tractors. I slept next to the highway, and this fox attacked me at night, something like that. And that was great. But I started following my heart and doing what I wanted to do, and it was really liberating. And it was this Camino experience that showed me that I can be alone. I'm okay being alone, and I'm okay following my heart, and things will be okay. So I went back to Carleton, with this in mind. And I went back and my football experience was completely different. I got a lot out of it. I met the people I wanted to meet, and I didn't really care about the playing time or whatever was happening. I cared about the people I was connecting with. And same thing with my classes. I didn't study as much for my classes, and I actually did better. I did a lot better because I was operating on a higher level. I was operating on higher principles. I wanted to understand the material, and I wasn't going for the A. And I was having a lot more fun with it. And partying-wise, I was going to the parties, not drinking, and like making more friends. And it was incredible. And it was also this time that I started publishing articles in journals on campus, and I did a couple panels, like one on sports and masculinity, because I felt very misunderstood. Like playing football and like being an athlete in college was, I felt like people very much misunderstood the athletes and kind of like pegged the guy athletes as like macho, like whatever, and you can't really get out of that stereotype. And so I wanted to change that. So I had a panel, and we got a bunch of people to come, a bunch of athletes to come, and the school paid for it. And a friend and I just started it. And then another one of my friends, a girlfriend of mine, she got abused sexually, and I was really upset about it. And so I did a panel on sexual violence, you know. And it wasn't on sexual violence, but it was on just sex, and people talking about sex and getting it out in the open, because no one talks about it in college. It's kind of like hush-hush. And I was like, it doesn't need to be like this, and I want to talk about it. So I got people together, and we talked about it. But I was creating what I wanted. And it was interesting because once I started creating what I wanted and doing the things that I thought were meaningful to me, people were attracted to me. And I started changing my group of friends. And this is kind of like what if I could like say one thing, it's if you don't use a life coach or whatever, I think the most important thing is finding people who help you grow and who want you to grow and who have a vision for you. And like the vision being, they see you beyond who you are in the present moment. They want you to be better. And I think that's the most important thing. And I started attracting people like that. And I'm talking like the last 6 months of college, I started meeting people I actually thought were cool and interesting. And they were kind of like the weird, nerdy, intellectual kids who didn't go to the parties, but they had their own parties that were crazier and more fun, you know, because we were doing different things. And we would talk about things that I actually cared about instead of like, oh, like, what are you up to? Oh, nothing. Homework, dude? Yeah. I can't talk to you right now. Oh, I gotta go. But it was cool because once I started being the author of my own life, but once I started taking responsibility for my life, other people were attracted to it, and things kind of took care of themselves. And I learned to follow my heart. Like these panels and these publications, like they're really vulnerable. Like I was talking about things like sex and things that everyone is insecure with. You know, like no one's comfortable getting up and talking about sex. Like it's pretty scary. But it was something that I felt like my heart calling me to do, and I did it. You know, and I'm doing that right now. Actually, I'm moving to Argentina tomorrow morning, and I don't like have anything packed or anything like that. I just got done with my banking today, so I'm like pretty scared about that. I couldn't be more scared, but it's what I want right now. You know, like I want to go away. I want to go on another adventure, and so I'm moving down to Argentina. I don't have a job. I don't have a place to stay. I have a couple contacts, but I'm just gonna go wing it and figure it out. But that's what I want right now, and I feel like I'm free to do it. And my hope for you is not to go abroad 3 times, or it's not to do whatever I did in college, but it's to find support like during those, because college can be really lonely, to find support during the lonely times. And also not only support, because I have people who are there for me, but people who want better for you and who see you in a higher light. And so that would be my challenge, is to find friends, take the time to find the friends who are good for you. It's going to be really scary. I know some of your juniors, some of you are actually in college, some of your seniors. But it takes time, you know, to find good friends. And I wouldn't settle with friends who aren't good for you. And I did that. I kept on moving up friendship groups to people who were better and better for me. But at some point I plateaued and didn't look for the people. I didn't keep looking up. I didn't keep notching up friendship groups and stuff like that. So my challenge would be, or my hope for you would be that you guys would be able to find people who are good for you. And in those lonely times, like reach out for help. Because people want to help, especially in college. People want to help. No one's parents around, so like helping someone else makes you feel good too. So, but that's pretty much all I gotta say.